Hello, welcome back. I'm so happy that the first video is out of the way because I don't have to worry about how I'm starting this. I can just say welcome back. Today we are diving in on the Manor. This is just going to be the introduction video. We're going to go through what the house looked like before I bought it from the listing photos, and then we'll wrap it up nice and tidy with my first walkthrough. I purchased my first home at the end of May 2018 in North Minneapolis. I had been living just a few miles west in a rental in a small community called Crystal. My landlord told me just after New Year's Eve that he was going to be selling the house in 2018. And if I were to find a different living situation, I could move out at whatever point. Initially I thought, ooh, maybe I'll just buy this house. But the amount of money he wanted for it was frankly insane. Even with the real estate market as good as it was in 2018, it was absolutely insane. And I also decided that the house I had been living in with my ex that did not end well probably wasn't the best idea to purchase and be stuck in. I also didn't want my first house to be a 1950s ranch. And you know, before I get like too into these videos, no offense to anyone for loving what you love. If you love ranch houses, good for you. If you love old Victorians, good for you. If you love sterile, brand new homes that are in a subdivision where there are only 3 different types of houses, good for you. That's cool. That wasn't for me. With my first house, I decided that I wanted a character home. I wanted a home that had some history to it, that was maybe one of a kind, or at least one of a kind in the surrounding blocks. And that was what the hunt was for. I reached out to my old friend and former coworker, Brenda, who worked for Coldwell Banker, and I asked her to put me in touch with someone in the Minneapolis market because I was too much of a chicken to reach out on my own. I am absolutely an extroverted introvert when I need to be. I hate making cold calls, and I did not want to fall into the wrong hands, so to speak. I'm a nervous enough person as it is, and I did not want to get partnered with, you know, kind of a shitty real estate agent. I didn't want that. The local office did reach out, and they partnered me with a man named Kieran, and I took it as a great sign because Kieran is a character in my books, spelled the same way. And I thought, oh great, this is a sign. This is the person I need to be with. The market in Minneapolis in the spring of 2018 is very much what it is now. It was incredibly competitive. We looked at 35 houses before finding mine, which was lucky number 36, I guess. But 35 houses. And some of them we would go to. The listing went live that Friday. We showed up. There were 15 other real estate agents there with their clients. Some houses you had timed entry, so you just kind of wait outside, but some agents would just show up with their people, so you had to walk through with someone else talking to their clients, and it was just so uncomfortable and so not me. You know, I always pictured with my first house that it was going to be this intimate experience, and I'd go into the very first property that I saw and think, this is it. This is the house, and I'm gonna buy this one because it's perfect, and the stars aligned, and you know, fate shines on me, and my life's perfect, even, you know, okay. But we looked at 35 houses from, I'm gonna say it was late February through mid-April. I made offers on 4. I think it was after like 5 houses I made an offer, lost it. I was not, admittedly, a desirable candidate. I had 3% down to offer, first time homeowner. Like, there was really like, I wouldn't have wanted to pick me from a list, but you know, you have to start somewhere. But yeah, 4 houses, that is 4 times the heartbreak. That is 4 houses that you find that you think, this is the one. I'm gonna do this with this room and this with this room, and I'm gonna entertain in this kitchen and have my friends and family over, and it's gonna be so great. And you submit your offer and they say, okay, we're accepting offers until, you know, whatever, the end of the weekend. And then the end of the weekend comes and you find out, no, you didn't get the house because you suck. And it's just devastation. It's heartbreak. It's constantly like, okay, back to the drawing board, and who doesn't love that? So it was an early evening in mid-April that we looked at the 35th house. It was a couple streets removed from Theodore Wirth Parkway, which is a, you know, in Robbinsdale, it's a very desirable area to live, very historic, pretty if you're on that side of Penn Avenue. On the other side of Penn Avenue, which was where my eventual house was going to be, not so great. We'll get there. Early evening, I'd worked all day. I met Kieran at this house. There was another couple there, of course. Walked through it, went upstairs, and I decided then and there, I will say this about myself. I know what I like and I know what I don't like. So most of these houses, I could tell from the outside, this is a no-go. But we'd go through anyway because you were already there. So we walked through the house on the second floor. The ceilings might have been 6.5 feet tall. I am 6'4". I am not a small person. I am a big guy. 6.5 foot tall ceilings is not gonna work for me, especially when like, it'd be like, you know, straight ceiling across the top and then it'd cut in. It's just not conducive to me not bashing my face into the wall. So I told Kieran, no, this isn't gonna work. And he had said, okay, well, do you wanna see that other house? And I said, which one? He was like, well, that one you called the Crayola house, because there was a house that had popped up with the craziest f***ing colors you had ever seen. And I thought, God, who lived here? Why would you make this? Why would you make this your home? He also seemed to read my mind because he said, I'll never forget this. He turned to me, he goes, I know you said it's ugly as f***, but we should just see it. It's so close. It's a couple streets over. Let's just go. All right, let's go. The sun was setting. It had just snowed a couple days earlier, like 15 inches. So knowing that my timeline changes, and this is probably April 23rd, because the snowstorm was on April 20th. I'm a weirdo with dates, and you'll probably come to find that out. We pull up, and I'm just thinking, this is not gonna be the house. Like it looks like a witch's house from the outside. And don't get me wrong, I love a witchy vibe, and eventually I very much embraced it, but it didn't look good. And Kieran said when we were down at the curb, he had a phone call to take, and would it be all right if he just went and unlocked the house for me, and he was gonna stay outside and take this call and I could go in and look around quick. And I thought, well, whatever, it's fine. I know the drill at this point, it's house number 36. So he hurried ahead, unlocked the door, and then retreated. So I kind of walked up the concrete steps from the street, and they had this wood gangway that went to the deck. And on either side of it, you could kind of see that there were raised, what I would eventually find out were vegetable beds, whatever, gardens. There was a bean trellis that was decaying. But there are so many things that I remember walking up to that house for the first time. All of the wood that clearly was not original to the house had been stained this really awful orangey brown color. I went up the steps onto the deck that was outside of the covered porch, and there was a bundle of dried lavender hanging there and some sort of a purple crystal like an amethyst hanging by wire. And I thought, well, it's kind of fun. Whatever, went inside the covered porch that someone at one point had screened this thing in. It was not original to the house. The porch though had the original beadboard ceiling, the original storm door, and the original front door for the house. So that was just very cool because it was 104 years old and it was still in actually remarkably good condition, despite what the outside of the house looked like. I went in the house into the foyer, and the house was like 99% empty of all of their belongings. There were still a couple random things here and there, but it had this weird echoey, I don't want to call it a sound, it had this kind of echoey vibe, like just, it weirdly felt like whatever you thought about in the house, it kind of reverberated back to you, like you were projecting it and it was coming back. And there was this smell in the foyer, and I say smell and it sounds like a negative thing, but there was a scent. And it's so interesting how scent can transport you back to so many different things in your life, whether it's a location or a meal or a person. There's all sorts of things that come with scent. Now, in my family, sidebar, but related, in my family, relatives used to own this great, big, beautiful mansion in Kentland, Indiana. In the early 90s, we went there for spring break. So we're talking like March of 1991. I was 5. The house had this huge foyer with a staircase that went up and bent like the one at this house did. And I had these memories of this stairwell, and I couldn't recall why. And recently I was at my parents' house going through the photo albums and found this picture of me from that stairwell with my Aunt Sally. And it just, seeing that picture now makes so much sense to me why in that moment, 27 years later, I was triggered to remember oh, the house in Indiana. Like, wow, this is a pretty powerful memory, and it's coming back to me. And it was so heartwarming and interesting. But looking around, you know, the walls were this hideous orange color and the ceiling was yellow, and the plaster seemed to all be original because it was all cracked and repaired however many times over the years. So I walked into the living room, which had these sherbet green, you know, minty green walls and ceiling. And one of the things that immediately took my attention was the stained glass window, which is original to the house. There's also one in the foyer at the bottom of the stairs that was original. And I thought those were such special details to still exist in this place that had clearly been through a lot of stuff. I have to say, going through the house the first time, you know, I kind of had rose-tinted glasses on because it's your first time in a space and you're really taking it in at large. You're not looking at the tiny details because that's not what's important at that moment. You know, in the moment, you are taken by the romanticism that comes with the original trim and the original hardwood floors and the heat registers on the walls all being original. Walking into the dining room and seeing this beautiful built-in with the original trim, and just thinking, God, this could be mine, and it's cheap. Like it was in my price range. And I remember walking through and thinking, no shit, this is something, but let's not put all of our eggs in one basket yet. So you're taken by the age and beauty that just oozes from the walls. And then you go into the kitchen and see the electric blue paint that has been rag rolled onto the walls with the IKEA kitchen cabinets, and you think, wow, this is special. This is unique. In all honesty, by this point, my heart was just beating out of my chest. I knew the minute I walked into that foyer that this was going to be the house. And that was further compounded when I opened the back door, and because it had snowed, everything was wet, and with wet, certain woods have a scent to them. Here we go with scent again. But there was this giant oak tree in the backyard, and it spanned almost completely over the neighbor's yard and then kind of over the neighbor's the other way. But because that oak was wet, the smell of it reminded me of growing up visiting my grandmother, opposite side of the family, in Northern California. She lived in the mountains. And I just thought, like, I've got both sides of the family here in memory in this moment for this house. And that means something. This was the first house that I had felt that in. So I hustled back into the house, through the kitchen, down this hallway that connected to the foyer, and it had like an offshoot for the stairs down to the basement, which were terrifying and my least favorite part of the house. I started climbing the stairs, which were creaking and groaning with every step. At the top of the stairs, there was a hallway that went to the right, and then two doors, you know, immediately, one in front of you and one to the left. The one to the left would eventually be my office, or I deemed this would be the office, and it had blue trim. I don't know why. The door across from the top of the stairs was going to be the guest room, because it just needed to fit a bed and it was a small room. It was also weirdly the only room without a ceiling light, so I don't know why one was never added. I never added one either, so guess we'll never know. Down the hall though were the primary bedroom and the only bathroom in the house, and weirdly the bathroom door opened outward into the hall. The bathroom and the primary bedroom were the only two rooms in the listing that did not have photos, and I can only assume it was because the bathroom was the most god-awful shade of day-glow bright Skittle lime green you have ever seen in your life. It was it was very intense, with one wall painted charcoal gray, of course. But it was a big bathroom with a clawfoot tub and really neat. And then the primary bedroom was painted a dark navy blue. I don't know why they didn't take photos of that, but it doesn't matter. In the primary bedroom, there was a little nook that had a door that went out to a balcony. There was no railing on it. Ultimately, I would never add a railing to this either, but it was meant to be a balcony. So I went back down the stairs and kind of scooted through the house again with, you know, even bigger eyes, because all of a sudden my brain is going into design mode and what would I do in each room and what are all the possibilities that lay before me here. It's like that gif of that woman with the numbers. So then eventually I'm just standing in the living room with my arms kind of crossed high, looking around, and Kieran comes in and he says, "Are you ready to go?" and I looked at him, and I remember my eyes, I'll cry at anything, and I'll probably cry in these videos at some point too. I remember my eyes kind of misting over, and I said, this is the one. And Kieran had this look on his face like, are you f***ing kidding me? But ever the professional, he just said, are you serious? So we walked through the house together, examined it a little bit more closely with, you know, his careful opinion on things that he was noticing that perhaps I had skipped over. These are all things that we'll go over in the next video where we really kind of do a deep dive on what the hell was wrong with this place. But then it was done. And we left, and I told him outside, I want to make an offer for the full asking price, which was $180,000. I went home and waited. The house had been on the market, I want to say for a week. I don't think it was on the market for 2 weeks, but it may have been. It had not had any, I guess there was one offer that came through that was insulting. And me, because I'd been, you know, burned by 4 houses, I was like, well, I'm not gonna create an insulting offer. You can't be insulted if I'm offering the asking price. I think I might have gone $1,000 over by offering 180. I don't know, it's been a long time and I'm old. I think maybe the next day they had accepted my bid. I had an inspection, which of the 3 houses, I've had 2 inspections. This was a great one. The second house was not. I have mixed feelings on inspections. It depends on the inspector that you have. This guy, his name was Dale. He wore Birkenstocks and he was fabulous. The most detailed report, I never found anything additional wrong with the house that he had not found. I cannot say the same for my second house. I digress. Dale didn't end up finding much wrong with the house. There were some things that he did find, and I did ask the owners to fix or replace them. And I think it was just the refrigerator did not actually work. Missing a smoke alarm, or it needed new ones, something about that. And then I think I wanted the furnace checked. And they agreed, and they did it all, and they replaced the refrigerator. In hindsight, I wish I just asked for the money for a fridge so I could buy the one that I wanted instead of this really ugly black one that they that they got, but it's okay. The house also came with a 1-year warranty, which at the time I remember thinking like, ooh, good, you know, all the things that can go wrong. But the warranty only covered mechanical devices. I did end up needing it, but we'll get into that in another video. The day before closing, I had to do a final walkthrough of the house. The entire front yard had grown up, and it was 3-foot high weeds. I have no problem saying now, and I've said it in the past, but it was awful. And I stood outside the house waiting for Kieran to show up thinking, is this a mistake? Are you making a mistake? Because all of a sudden in the light of, you know, summer light, or I guess technically spring if you're being a turd, in warm light with all green, the house looked a lot worse than it did in the winter. And Kieran pulled up and saw the look on my face and told me right away, if you want to back out, we can. Now, him saying we could back out if I wanted, I knew it was just him being nice, because at this point, 3 months in, he's not getting paid until we close on something. I think he was ready to kill me if I did not go through with this. I felt like I was never going to purchase something so huge ever again. And then we flash forward to now where it's my 3rd house and it's just like paperwork, so just get it out of my face. Kieran said several times as we walked through the house, you can back out if you want to. And I thought like, wow, maybe he knows something that I don't, but I feel like I can't back out, so I'm not going to. I closed on the house May 31st, 2018 at 3:30 in the afternoon. I met with Kieran and my lending officer, Caroline, who still work with, love her to death, at the Coldwell Banker offices in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. In hindsight, I wonder why there's no photo. You know how when people buy houses, there'll be like the photo with them and a bunch of balloons and stuff in front of whatever real estate office sign, and they're, you know, doing their thing, or maybe it's a photo in front of the house and they're popping champagne. I don't have that. I don't recall being asked if they could take a picture of me or if I would like a picture. In all fairness, they may have, and I felt stupid, so I said no. It's only in hindsight when you're looking back through photos that you wonder like, well, why the hell don't I have a picture commemorating this? I have nothing. When the signing was done, I drove straight to the house, key clenched in my fist, just thinking, I did it. I signed 500,000 signatures on this paperwork. I don't remember a single thing that the lady told me that was, you know, officiating. I don't, is that what you call it? Are they notary? I don't know. When I got to the house, as I was coming up, I feel like I parked in the back and walked through the weeds to get around to the front, which, like, in hindsight, they were probably, I don't remember if I was knocking away spider webs or not. Oh, you'll see. When I got to the front porch, I turned the camera on my phone to record. So here is the walkthrough for my friends and family that got to see it right away.
Let's see. Okay, so we've got a little entryway here, and as soon as I figure out where all the lights are, there's a living room that goes through to the dining and the built-in, and that goes around to the kitchen, and there's the light for the little entryway that I will zhush up and make it cute. This is the pantry and my nice new fridge that I asked for. And we're not gonna go downstairs yet, but we'll go upstairs. A little warm in here. So here is the guest room where y'all will be staying, and this will end up being the office. There's a closet there, and then a little hidden area for the poop boxes, and then we've got the bathroom with its clawfoot tub. It goes around there. And master bedroom with a window outside. There's me. There's the garage that's leaning. And then this is technically a balcony, but I need to get it fixed. So that's all. That's the house. Who cares about the basement? And I hope you guys get to see it soon. After recording that, I went downstairs into the living room and stood there in the silence of the house and just looked around. I could see suddenly how shitty the blinds were, that they were broken in parts or missing slats, and that the ceiling was cracked, and the gaps around the railing that met the, you know, where the walls met the ceiling, there was this gap around them that I hadn't noticed, and the baseboards that were original actually weren't. They would change midway through the wall where they were spliced with different baseboards or different decorative trim pieces, and that was a theme that went throughout the house. And then I start noticing all the stains on the original wood floors, and that the grate in the floor is not original. It's probably from the 70s. There are the cobwebs and the weird smells, and all of a sudden I was crying. And I stood there for a couple minutes and had a good cry, because I thought, you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. And that's not something to sit easily with, you know, at 32. 2 massive failed relationships in the book, not really being happy with where you're living, and you decide to buy a house. So maybe not the best idea, but that's why we're here, right? Purely and simply, I just thought I was in way over my head, and I did not know how I was going to tackle any of the issues. I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and here I was in a house that was so alluring to me because of all the work it was gonna need. So, you know, oops. Then I pulled myself together. I let my hair down, took my shoes off, and propped my phone against them, set the timer, and I took this picture to commemorate day 1 of homeownership. 2 years and 3 months later, after a soul-crushing breakup and living through the worst part of the pandemic, I would sell the manor. We've got a lot to cover before then, so stay tuned and I'll see you next week.